ladies and gentlemen. I'm so excited today. As you know, we have Rudy Maxa on. We are honored to welcome Rudy Maxa, a distinguished journalist, broadcaster, and one of America's premier consumer travel experts. And guess what? We've known each other since I was in high school. Isn't that crazy?
That's a hell of a show opening. My God, I feel like I'm on network TV.
You are. Here you are. And so Rudy has, actually, you can just Google him on anything and you will find him. He's got 98 half-hour episodes of the world's greatest destinations, for which he's received 3 Emmys. Yep. He's a worldwide figure on public television. You can just say, turn on your PBS and listen to him. He does amazing things, everything you wanted to know about the world and Travel Channel around the world. He began his career as an investigative reporter in Washington, D.C. at the Washington Post. And did I mention that he also got nominated for a Pulitzer Prize? He's been happening my entire life, for real.
Lost by 1 vote. But you know, Cindy, who remembers? I mean, who counts? Who even remembers that?
Well, it's funny because you were at the Washington Post and I was in the Washington Post modeling for Nina Hyde.
Yes, you were.
And then I went into copiers and I sold to the Washington Post there for a while. It was fabulous. They bought a lot of copiers back in the day. But now, after 11 years at the Post, he joined the city magazine, The Washingtonian, which I was also in, as a senior writer for 9 years before becoming the DC bureau chief of the New York-based satire magazine, Spy.
Those were the days. Those were the days. We used to call Donald Trump a thick-fingered grabbarian. Every single mention in Spy magazine of his name was preceded with thick-fingered grabbarian Donald Trump. Even back then, he hated public. He hated the print media. Yeah.
Well, after that, he travels and turned his interest of traveling and the love for going new places into travel journalism. And he spent 17 years as a contributing editor and an award-winning writer with National Geographic.
National Geographic Traveler.
Thank you.
The other one we call Big Yellow.
I have a friend, Jim Blair, who was a photographer for National Geographic. Did you know?
No, but I didn't work for National Geographic. That's Big Yellow.
Oh.
I work for Traveler.
Traveler.
Yeah, right.
Traveler.
National Geographic Traveler, right.
He hosted his 1-hour public radio show, The Savvy Traveler, before launching his public television series. He writes, he's got 2 nonfiction books, one congressional scandal and the other one about international con man. And he's written, of course, for all the big magazines, Vogue, GQ, Playboy, Forbes, People, Ladies' Home Journal, and many newspapers, including the London Evening Standard.
Hey, I don't think we have much time left to talk. It's really been great, Cindy, being on the show.
Currently co-host a 2-hour weekend show on the commercial radio that has broadcasts on 585 shows. So welcome, Rudy.
Nice to see you, Cindy, even if it is electronically, virtually.
Yeah, hugs. So tell us about your journey from journalism to becoming one of America's premier travel experts.
Well, I wish I could say it was by design because, as you know, print journalism there are fewer and fewer jobs in it and fewer magazines that pay any serious money. So it was hardly by design. It turned out to be a good thing to do income-wise and career-wise, but it just... I think when I worked at the Washington Post, the travel section paid you $150 to do a travel piece, sort of a freelance basis. My job was not to cover travel at the Washington Post. But I wrote a few travel pieces, and then I went to Washingtonian magazine, and some other magazines called me on a freelance basis to write travel pieces. I always loved traveling. I grew up an Army brat, so I moved all over the place and lived primarily in Europe. And then the internet was invented, and ABC.TV.com and MSNBC, and later what's it called, AOL, asked me to write travel stuff, and I kept going, well, I'm not really a travel writer, but I became one, and then the opportunity to do radio came along, and then of course, I mean, it took him forever. I mean, with this face, I don't know why it took 40 years for him to get me on television, but. Anyway, I started doing television, and as you said, did 98 shows for public television. They're not. Some stations still run them, but they're mostly off air now. I stopped doing them just before COVID. But they're on. You can watch them on YouTube and on, I guess, Amazon Prime. You just type in Rudy Maxa and the destination you want to go to, and the odds are pretty good you'll find something, because we did shows in Africa and South America and Asia and, of course, Europe, and 2 shows in America, but that's all. So.
We can take one moment and say, share this out, guys. And Lori says hi. You know Lori Eastep now.
Oh, Lori. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Woohoo. We're talking. And hi, Grace, and hi, Alex, and hi, everybody. I can't see your names, but we'll talk about how to get on that later. But meanwhile, what inspired you to create Rudy's World? I put my world here.
Well, the radio show on public radio is called The Savvy Traveler, but I didn't trademark it. And when I started doing television, I just thought, I don't know, Rudy Maxa's World. I mean, that's what it was going to be. It wasn't any particular thing, any very, very brilliant. You can't read it, but underneath in very small type, it says high definition travel, because we were public television's first high definition show on their weekend lineup. And the weekend lineup was, sort of lifestyle shows like travel and cooking, etc. So we were the first show. I mean, we used to shoot with these big $100,000 cameras that were literally this big. Very expensive, very big. I mean, now you can almost shoot it on an iPhone almost as well. Not quite, but almost,
What's your most memorable travels? Where do you?
Well, I think almost everybody's memorable travels are when something goes wrong.
No, I only want to hear the good ones.
No, but that's what you remember. Paul Theroux once told me that. He says, it's what goes wrong that reminds you. Look, sit down at a dinner table and somebody says, oh, I just got back from Bordeaux, France. They got great wines there and oysters and Cap Ferret. And you're like, yeah. But if I sit down and say, I was shooting a show in Uzbekistan till I broke my shoulder when the camel threw me off and I hit the ground and my producers thought I was dead, that's more of a conversation starter than what my great trip to Bordeaux, unless that person happened to be wanting to go to Bordeaux next week or something. So it is when things go wrong that you tend to remember it a little better. So.
Is that a true story? Obviously it is, yes?
Yes, true story, yeah. I don't like camels. I've never liked camels. I mean, I've ridden them in Egypt and in Jordan, and then when we were shooting in Uzbekistan, Egypt and Jordan, when I was doing print stories that were unrelated to travel, they were political stories, but I just happened to be on camels. But they're foul beasts. They're mean. And in Uzbekistan, we were in a small town called, I can't remember what it's called. I'll think of it in a second. And there was a guy, there was no camels around the town, but there was one guy in town under a tree holding a camel. My producer thought it'd be really cute to have the show end with me with a big, thick, it was about 110 degrees summer, big, thick Uzbek velvet robe with a bearskin. They wear these round bearskin black hats and some spices from Uzbekistan in my hand. And I look at the camera and I say, farewell from Uzbekistan. I'm laden with spices and whatever, and goodbye. See you next week or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the guy we had a translator, and the guy was like, nah. And my producer said, we'll pay you $50. Now, this guy was charging people $1 to shoot their kids sitting atop a camel. Nobody wrote it. They just sat atop and took a picture, and that was that. Well, $50, that was like a week's income for him. So he said, well, okay. So we said we'd come back at sunset around 8 o'clock at night when the light was nice, which we did. I put on my big velvet robe. I put on my hat. I got on, and God brought a ladder out. I climbed up. No saddle or anything to hold on. No reins, no saddle, just bareback. But he led the camel with a rope, feeding it bread as it walked along this cobblestone street. The camera did not see him doing that. All you saw was me atop the camel, allegedly riding it was riding a camel. And we did a take, and of course, all producers want more takes. So they said, okay, we got to do another. And so I get off with the ladder. We go back at the starting point, with the ladder up. I get on it. And before I could do the second take, I just felt this undulating between my legs. And I literally saw myself going up there. I looked down at the cobblestone street and thought, not good, not good. And it wasn't. I was knocked. I was unconscious, and it broke my right shoulder bone. So. Mine's a very dangerous job, Cindy.
Oh, I'll say.
Very dangerous.
I have a picture of my sister. We were Air Force family, on a camel. I think it's Afghanistan. Maybe it's Kuwait. She's amazing. She just retired after 27 and a half years in the Air Force. Full bird colonel.
Wow, that my
I think
dad
you
was
met her.
in the Army,
I
right?
think you met her when she was a baby.
Probably did.
Yes. So, let's see. I don't have very much time. What are the key lessons you learned from exploring different cultures in the world? I only have them for 25 minutes, guys. So if you have any questions, put them
Well,
in now.
we'll have 30 minutes. What did I learn culture-wise? Well, that every culture, there's a lot to learn from every culture, and that America isn't necessarily the best country in the world in all respects, and maybe all the food we eat isn't quite as good as it is elsewhere. I mean, I really think food is very important in understanding a culture. I mean, those are a couple of things I learned. I also, I learned because I do a lot of consumer travel writing, and I learned some of the mistakes that we make as travelers. And I think the number one mistake is that we don't travel as much as we want to. Number one, which is not a particularly revelatory thing. But I remember I was once in the London tube station decades ago, and in the tube stations they've got these enormous billboard ads on the ceiling, the rounded ceiling of the tube station. And it was a picture of an elderly couple sitting on what looked like a modest home, to put it. I mean, it was almost wood. It looked like something out of Appalachia, sitting in the front porch of their home, and they were in rocking chairs. And it was a billboard to get you to want to come to Turkey. So here's this elderly couple in a wood frame. I mean, it looked like it was a cabin in rocking chairs. And the caption was, "Remember that time we almost went to Istanbul?"
Huh.
And I always say to people when I give speeches, I always end with that. I always say, look, don't be those guys.
Right.
Because all of us do it. And I know you do, Cynthia. I do. You say to your girlfriend, husband, boyfriend, whatever, someday we got to go to Paris. Someday we got to go to Hong Kong. Someday we got to go to Yosemite. Someday we got to go to Mexico.
Been there.
Yeah, well, not everybody does it. They keep putting it off. And then they're in that rocking chair. Remember that time we almost went to Hong Kong and Istanbul and, Paris, right? That's what I learned about us as American travelers, because we have such a beautiful country and a bountiful country for traveling, but still some folks are wary of leaving, the borders of our country. And I think you learn a lot by doing that.
So much. You have so much wisdom. You had a pivot during COVID. What are you doing now?
Well, I just got back from visiting my daughter who has a home in Bordeaux in France. I got back about a week ago, and I was visiting an old girlfriend in Greece, and we go to small islands that Americans have never heard of, which is very interesting for me because I don't know, they're like 1,500 Greek islands, and everybody can mention Santorini and a couple more, but she takes me to these islands nobody's ever heard of. So.
And do you film while you're there?
Somebody else, and when I'm not dating somebody else. So.
Do you film while you're there? Like, do you shoot little segments, or you just are relaxing? And
I mean, I might shoot something for Instagram, a little video or YouTube or something, but usually not. I just sort of take pictures. Yeah.
You got any tips for our people?
Oh, I got lots of tips.
Traveling.
I got a lot of tips. Yeah, read some books, watch some movies, watch some TV shows about the place. Get excited about it. Don't be afraid to take a wrong turn in a road, because you never know where that wrong turn is going to take you. Don't overpack.
Yes. Oh, look at Grace. So Grace is my 92-year-old poet laureate. She wants to know how you knew me when I was a youngster, and did you know her family?
I did not know your family. We were both military brats. I met you in high school, and I think were we out in LA together at some point by chance?
I believe so, yes. And I also believe you might have hit a couple of my pageants and parades and all that stuff.
I think we hooked up for dinner in LA. Yeah. So.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's a small world, guys. You have to get out and see it. And you can see it from Rudy's world. He does so many great things. I really enjoyed your last two podcasts I saw. I was thinking of the one on the Villa V Odyssey that hasn't left yet, where the ship has you buy your place.
Oh yeah. My
book has that exact thing in it, by the way.
You what?
My book has this
same yacht.
You get the yacht, you buy your room, you go in, you live there, a millionaire, and you travel around and you do good works from each place.
There is one ship called Residency that's managed to do that for the last 3 years, but there've been a couple that have started up, and people have put a whole lot of money down to buy sort of a condo, a room for around the world tour, as long as they want to live on it. And people have gotten burned because the builders never have enough money to complete it, or the design of the ship was faulty and they weren't allowed to sail certain places. But yeah, that's one that's having some problems getting started. The other, I was thinking the other thing I was talking about, never going where you say you're going to go. The way you get around that is you make a firm plan, even if it's a year ahead. Say, okay, June 14th through the 20th, first, next year, 2025, we're going to go to Paris. And then you work toward it. And you build your life around it. You save some money and you go. And the other mistake I think we all make is searching for airfares. We find a good airfare online, but then we seem to feel the need to ask our significant others, our friends, our people at the office, hey, last night I found this fare to LA for, $280 round trip. Is that a good fare? And when finally everybody tells you, yeah, it's a good fare, and you go back, even if it's an hour later, but certainly if it's a day or two later, and now the fare is $340 or $380, it was just $280 the other day. Pull the trigger when you see a good fare. You got 24 hours in the United States to get all your money back if you change your mind, and all your friends tell you it's a terrible fare and don't go, and those days don't work for me. So.
That is a great tip, ladies and gentlemen. And go to Packing Light. How do you pack?
How do I pack?
Yeah.
I pack too many things. I do radio shows. I have to carry radio equipment, so I usually have to carry a small carry-on suitcase for the electronic equipment. Then I have to have another suitcase I have to check. But I try to pack as lightly as possible. You go to Greek Island, you just need a couple, T-shirts, a swimsuit, and that's about it.
That's what you can carry. Backpack and a little pulley, and off you go. And the summer stuff folds up small.
Yeah, it's when you're going to a cold place that you need, or places where you're going to need it. If you're a man, a sport coat, or a woman, a cocktail dress, or something. Then you need shoes. Women need shoes.
Yeah, it takes up a lot of room.
And it does. It takes up a lot of room, and they're heavy.
Yes. How do you balance being a travel expert with being an informed and responsible traveler?
A travel expert with being informed. Well, I think I should be all those things, don't you?
Well, yes, I know you are. But it's a lot. That's a lot to keep on. You've got your professional. You've got your job you're trying to do. You've got your place you're trying to see. You have to hook up and you have to respect the customs of the area that you're in, and the people and the religions and all the borders and all the laws and all the shot requirements and How do you do it?
You just summed it up. You got to do all those things. I mean, certainly we all make mistakes in different cultures. But I think what people, for someone who's never been abroad, I think what you'll find is that people in other countries give you a lot of rope. I mean, if you can just on the way on the flight over, learn to say please, thank you, and I'm sorry in their language, then they'll tolerate you. And English is widely spoken, and they will forgive you if you order a cappuccino in Italy at the wrong time of the day. And if you mispronounce croissant instead of croissant, I mean, it's fine. It's okay. It's okay. Go make mistakes. They expect it. I mean, we've all met, foreigners who come here and mispronounce words, and we don't ridicule them. So no reason for you to be ridiculed or to be insecure about going to a country where you don't speak the language or know all the customs.
Oh, be polite, be kind, and smile. It gets you far.
No question. No question.
You had a top 10 list recently on your podcast. Do you hold to that as your top 10 favorite travel places, or does it always change?
Did I do that?
It was on. You have currently. You said Panama was number one because the U.S. dollar goes far.
No, those weren't top 10 places, Cynthia. Those were from International Living.
Expert Insider.
This is from International Living magazine, which is a subscription magazine for people who want to be expats and live abroad. And that was their list of the top 10 places to go be an expat. And number one was Panama, which surprised me. I've not actually been to Panama, but I know it's very easy to live in. They use the U.S. dollar as currency. They have good medical facilities. You're a short hop away from the States if you need to visit your friends and family. But still, I was surprised to see it as number one. Yeah, that list was not mine. That was just a list from International Living about places to be an expat, to go live as an American.
What are your top 5?
I don't know. I mean, I had a condo in Bangkok for 28 years, so I'm very fond of Thailand. And as I mentioned, I think I mentioned a former girlfriend in Thailand. So I really love Thailand. I would love to go maybe live in Vietnam for a while. I love my daughter has a home in Bordeaux. I love every. I mean, I think I really like Georgia. I've only been there once, the country of Georgia. I was in the winter, and I really would like it. Although they're having a lot of political difficulty because even though they're becoming a member of the EU, they have a government that's becoming a little too friendly for with Russia, excuse me, for much of their population and for the EU. So, and a lot of Russians have fled there, so that men and their families, men who didn't want to be drafted to fight Ukraine or fight in Ukraine. So it's getting a little more. Georgia's getting a little more political than I would hope. Otherwise, it's a very inexpensive country. It's a lovely country, great for skiing, great beaches, and I'd like to know it better. So I wouldn't mind living there for a year or two.
Ah, very nice. And your next couple?
Next couple, well, I mean, look, who doesn't want to live in, Burgundy or Bordeaux or Portugal or outside of Florence or somewhere, any wine country probably. But I'm okay, here the most often asked question I get, Cynthia, and I'm sure you do too, is what's your favorite country? And I tell people it's something you discover later in life that surprises you. Like you, I'm a military brat. My father was stationed in Europe a couple of times. Every weekend we'd drive the car from Germany to Paris or to Amsterdam or to Belgium or to Switzerland. And then I lived on the East Coast for 40 years as an adult, easy to get to Europe. I didn't get to Asia until I was about 32, 33.
Yeah, me too.
And I was blown away by it. Sure, I went to Hong Kong and Bangkok, blown away by it. So from then on, Asia is my favorite place to go visit. I mean, it's a long flight away and it's expensive, but I'd like to go there. And I think if my dad had been stationed in Asia, and we'd traveled all around Asia, and I didn't get to London, Paris, Florence, Rome, name it, in Europe, I'd be going, whoa, look at Europe. This is incredible. I think it's someplace that surprises you later in life. Sometimes it's your own hometown. You have people, when you and I, you live in Annapolis near Washington, and I lived in Washington. All these people come to Washington and go, whoa, let's go to the White House. I go, I never go to the White House. I never go to Lincoln Memorial. Your hometown is rarely your hero. But to other people, it can be the most right up there in the top 10. So sometimes maybe your hometown is where you ought to be or where you live now.
Where you find your own paradise.
Exactly.
Because it can be anywhere, and anyone can find their own paradise right within them and right around them.
How did you wind back in Annapolis? I thought you were living in Florida last I knew.
I ended up here because my dad, who got sick the most. I had I took care of 5 family members who all got sick and eventually died. And, yeah.
Gosh. Okay. Well,
my grandmother, my mother, my grandmother, my brother, my stepmother, and my dad. Oh, that's 6.
Did your sister help out?
Well, one sister was in the United States Air Force.
Oh, right. So she was on duty. Yeah. Okay.
And then she had 3 kids. Oh, Eric had a great question here. Eric said, what is the right time of day to order a cappuccino in Italy?
I don't drink coffee. But as I recall, it's a morning drink, and I'd be happy to be corrected by any viewers. But I didn't even taste coffee till a few years ago. And occasionally I have a cappuccino, but the Italians are very particular. And if you order a cappuccino, I think at dinner, they look at you like you're just falling off the moon. Why would you ever do that? Don't ask me why. I'm not a coffee expert, but I think the right time to order it is in the morning. Maybe even for lunch if you can get away with that. I don't know. But I also saw someone mention Tokyo being a great place. I have not mentioned that, but I would second that emotion. Japan's a fascinating country. So.
Yes, one of my top 3 cleanest countries in the world.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how clean it was. It was just beautiful. My favorite place that I think of as paradise is the Seychelles Islands. Have you been to the Seychelles Islands?
I haven't. I have not. I'd love to go. I mean, they are paradise from everything I understand and every picture I've ever seen. It's one of those places where I feel like I've been because I've heard so many things about it and seen so many pretty pictures. I feel like I've been there, but I have not. No. I don't like to go where there are camels you can get thrown off of.
No, there's no camels in Seychelles. You can ride a tortoise.
But it's basically a resort island. Could you live there happily, really?
I don't think so now because it's too far away from my family, but I did live there for 3 years and go to Regina Mundi Convent. I was going to be a nun.
Sorry. So you lived in the Seychelles for 3 years?
Yes, Rudy, I did.
Oh, well, the convent there, I'd go. If
Um,
there.
my dad was also the commander of the Air Force, the Satellite Test Control Center there, and he
Oh,
worked on
okay, okay.
One of the Apollo missions.
Well, if
Yeah.
there would be nuns as attractive as you there, I'd love to go live in the Seychelles.
Well, thank you, thank you. At the time we were there, it was a British Crown colony, so before they went independent. So there wasn't an airport. We landed by amphibian. Have you landed by amphibian? Have you?
Well, I have in Alaska, yes, but Alaska and the Caribbean, yeah, yeah. I mean, I look, I sort of need a city. I'm a city boy. I mean, I moved to St. Paul because I met a woman in L.A., where I was hoping to move to from D.C. and New York at the time. So that's how I wound up in St. Paul. It is a city, and Minneapolis is a bigger city, which is, of course, right next to us. That's why they call it the Twin Cities. I've learned since moving here. But yeah, I probably could, as lovely as I'm sure the Seychelles are, or as certain Caribbean destinations are, I'm a city boy. I need a big city.
So what are lesser known travel destinations that you recommend?
Well, as I mentioned, Georgia is not a country that many Americans go to visit. I love Uruguay. I vacation Uruguay a lot. I really, really like that country in South America. In Asia, Hanoi. I'm big in North Vietnam. Obviously, I like Bangkok. Where else? I mean, India. I often say India is like beets. Half of Americans like to eat beets, and half of Americans hate beets to eat. I've noticed, and that's how I think India is. I think half of Americans can't wait to go visit India, and half of Americans would never want to go there. All that poverty. I love India. So.
What sets your Rudy's Maxa world apart from other travel shows?
Well, they're pretty much timeless because they had to run on PBS for years. So unless in Rome, I have sort of a clunky cell phone in my hand, but otherwise you wouldn't really know when the show was filmed. Because we really don't focus on any political situation in a country or the hottest nightclub. It's really about architecture, culture, art, the people, the history of the place. So I hate to use the word educational because who's going to go on Amazon Prime and type in Rudy Maxa in Barcelona if it's educational? But it is. It's basically we want to make people. I want to make people travel there. I want to dare them to be great and to actually go and see these places. So as I say, a lot of emphasis on cuisine, architecture, art, the people, the history.
So when people go there and follow your ideas, how would they let you know about it?
If everybody who did that let me know about it,
the whole world, your email would blow up.
I wouldn't have any other time. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do often run into people here in the States and elsewhere say, we really were too nervous about ever going to France, and we saw your shows and it looked so delightful and it looked so easy, and you don't speak French, which I do not. So I went, and that's what I love to hear. I love to hear. Yeah. I don't need postcards from everybody.
Oh, can you share one of those behind the scenes stories from filming one of your episodes?
Well, I joke about being a TV guy, which I would never have thought I'd be a TV guy, let alone a radio guy. It's funny. I was a guy for 20 years as a Washington Post and Washington. Nobody ever said, you have a voice for radio. But as soon as I started doing national public radio with a national show, people said, well, of course you're on radio with your voice. Now, I know nobody said, no, of course you're on TV with your face. Nobody's ever said that to me. But I remember, and people, and TV is pretty easy, but I remember we were shooting in Rome. Outside of Rome is where there's a building that has the famous painting of the Last Supper.
Outside of Rome?
Yeah. And we weren't allowed in to shoot. They wouldn't give us permission to shoot. I don't know why. So I do a little stand-up in front of the building saying, when you come to Rome, reserve ahead to go, because you had to reserve to get in there. You couldn't just walk up and go in. I said, this is where the Last Supper is. Make sure you get a ticket before you go, And every time I said the Last Supper, and the first time I said the Last Summer. And my director, my producer said, we got to do it again. I said, why? I did it perfectly. She said, you said the Last Summer, not the Last Supper. I went, oh, okay. I said the Last Summer 7 times on camera. And my cameraman finally said to me, you say this one more time, and it is going to be your last summer. And then we always joke, Rick Steves is a friend of mine. He has been on much longer, 10 years longer than I have. And he's got many more shows than I have. He only does primarily Europe. But anytime a helicopter would go overhead while I was doing a stand-up and screw up the stand-up so I had to do it again, we'd always look at him like, it's Rick Steves, damn helicopter.
Oh, that is so fun. What legacy do you hope to leave through your work in travel and journalism?
Well, I hope a sense of adventure to people. I hope people are more, if they're hesitant about visiting places, I hope that's the legacy that they'll watch. I mean, I think when I post things on Instagram and YouTube and obviously the TV shows, I think, God, I'm going to be long dead and people are going to be watching this stuff, and I hope it's current enough that they go, I want to go with that. I want what that guy's having,
Yes. And you interview some very interesting people. I really like that interview with Pico.
Pico Iyer is a fabulous writer. He's an old friend of mine. And if you go to YouTube and type in Rudy Maxa and Pico Iyer, Iyer, I think you'll see a fascinating Q&A we did with him. Yeah. During COVID, I did a lot of that. Pico was a little later, but I did a lot of interviews with Paul Theroux and Simon Winchester and Pico Iyer and others just to keep myself occupied during COVID, because I could do it, like we're doing this.
Isn't it amazing? It's so fun. And you can find old friends and connect with them. So you could figure out your next trip to Thailand on the Zoom and organize it with your friends and do the meeting place and go.
Oh my gosh. I remember, how did we travel without that and without smartphones? I mean, it's hard enough to travel in the United States without a smartphone. You have to find a payphone if you get lost. Make sure you have a dime to record it or whatever it was to put into it, and explain why you're running late. Imagine doing that in a country like Japan where you don't speak the language or know how to use the payphones. Everything's so easy. You just text your friend on your phone, no matter where you are. Say, I'm running 15 minutes late, or I'm lost, whatever.
And you have the language translate when you translate.
Yeah,
so you can actually show anyone. There's like no excuse, guys. It is the oceans everywhere, the oceans of the world, the seas, the lakes.
It's definitely much easier to travel technologically now and to find information. And you get lost in while you're walking through Brussels, you call it the Brussels map, and put the address you want to go to, and it tells you exactly how to walk there, drive there, take the bus, take a cab, take a train, whatever. So.
Exactly. And now they're putting on free internet on lots of the planes. With
in fact, Delta is about to put on somebody was just flying the other day, and they've got Elon Musk's the one they're using the
Star what is it, Starnet?
Starlink, yeah, they've got it. And he said it was like being at home with high-speed Wi-Fi. It was unbelievable. And I think Delta is about to make all the Wi-Fi in their international flights free. Their domestic flights have had free Wi-Fi for a long time. I think they're about to make their international Wi-Fi free. And if they do, the competition like United and Delta and Lufthansa and British Airways and blah, blah, blah will have to do it as well. Yes. Now, Cynthia, I have to go to a dinner.
I know you do.
Night on August 14th, 2024 here in St. Paul, Minnesota. So I have to say goodbye. It was great fun seeing you. And if you want to drive in from Minneapolis, I'll take you to dinner in Washington sometime.
Okay. It sounds like a date.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Because you are amazing.
Oh, that's right. I'm supposed to say I'm amazing. You're amazing.
We are amazing.
We're engineers amazing.
You, ladies and gentlemen, share this out. Look up Rudy Maxa. Follow him on everywhere. You cannot miss him because he's got great stories, great tips, beautiful, beautiful landscapes, sunsets, food.
Our viewers are amazing.
We are amazing.
Thank you, Cynthia.
And Rudy Maxa's World. He's got some cruises coming up. You can always jump on.
I don't have any cruises coming up.
You don't? What? You have a trip coming up, right?
No. I started a tour company right after COVID. Bad idea. I'm not a tour. I mean, it was just, even though they were small group upscale tours, you get one person who's cranky on a tour and your life is ruined. And I said to my partner in this, I said, I'm not doing this. I'm a journalist, not a tour guide. Thank you very much. So no, I have no tours coming up.
Okay. Scratch that. Dan asked, Rudy, what do you think of the current state of airline travel?
Well, airline travel is certainly an easy thing to make fun of, but it is amazing that I can leave here, and have dinner in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and have breakfast in London, 7 hours later. It's just plain amazing. And yes, things go wrong. There's weather, there's mechanical problems, there's crew problems, but overall, it's fabulous as far as I'm concerned. And I love airports. I love airports. I like flying. No phone bothers you. You can read, whatever. That's what I think.
I'm so grateful for you and so grateful for travel and opening the world. Rudy's world.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Love you.